We are now live. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Waiting for the gang to come on in. Hi. Yes, new moon tomorrow night. It is indeed the start of another lunar cycle. Hi guys. How are you all? It's good to be with you. It's our Thursday nights together. I'm just going to wait a sec before I pull Nathan in, just to let you all join. Don't want you missing the beginning. How's your week been? Or 2 weeks? I've got to be honest, it's been a bit of a yo-yo here. I think that's the nature of the times, right? It really is. Everybody's coming in, going to say hi. Hola. Oi, todo bom, Brasil? I'm not going to do a plank now with Nathan, no. All right, I'm going to get Nathan in. I can't wait any longer. I need to see my brother. I need to connect. You need to meet this wonderful human being. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Requesting, waiting. Hello. Hi. Nicaragua, Chile. Hey!
Brother!
Hey, brother! The wonders of... I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you. The wonders of technology again. I mean, it is, again, we can take this stuff for granted, but there you are in LA, thousands of miles away, and here I am in the Welsh Hills, and it's winter, and we're connecting.
Yeah, and it's beautiful there. I have such fond memories when we recorded your record and being in Wales and waking up and just looking out to those beautiful fields and taking hikes. It was fantastic.
And what? I think it was exactly 3 years ago, wasn't it? Was it 2017 around this time? It was exactly this time.
Exactly.
Wow. I didn't even think of that because it's half term coming up. And so this would have been like the last week that we would have done 3 years ago.
I don't know how that time goes by that quickly.
And you look younger every day, my friend.
Well, it was fun. And I realized that a couple of days ago, you actually made history and for the first time in your life did a 2-minute plank.
Yeah. It was funny because I'd only ever done a minute before because, we tend to do a sort of series of 5 1-minute planks. And Sal said to me, that's my son, everyone else who doesn't know, Sal's my son. He said to me, Dad, can you do a 2-minute plank? And I'm like, I got this. I've so got this. So yeah. How's it? You must be are you nearly at the end of the 14-day plank? Was this today?
Yeah, it's a 20-day challenge. Wow. We're in 2020. And the whole concept behind it was we're in 2020. So I'm going to do 20 days of planks for 2 minutes, for 200,000 plus souls over here in America, So it's kind of like centered around the number 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just about a week left to go. And actually I may just continue after.
I think you should, man.
Just keep it going forever.
Keep it going until they found a vaccine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? It's one of those things where, we talked about it the other day. We can't really talk enough about, what needs to be done. And just, I hate to see that many statistics on the screen every day that just keep going up. And it's just like another statistic, 200 plus thousand lives here in this country. Yeah. And every day, 1,000, that's like 2 747s loaded full of people crashing every day.
Wow.
Who would put up with that? How is that possible?
I know it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot. I don't know what the discourse about all that is like where you are and amongst your friends, but I know that amongst my friends that there's very different opinions about all of this. And so one extreme will be like they're absolutely petrified of this, and I totally respect that. And then there's the other extreme, which is like, I was talking to someone today and they said, well, I just think let everybody get the coronavirus. And I said, have you had the coronavirus? He said, no. I said, I've had it. And I said, I'm not going to say my experience is the universal experience, but, and I'll tell you, I don't think we've spoken about this. So both Susan and I got the coronavirus, and she actually got it twice, and which with different symptoms. There's the symptoms with the throat that was the initial ones we were talked about. And then there's the other one, which is also about the loss of sense of smell and taste. And so she got back in February, early February, she got the throat, the blades, and the classic was out for 2 weeks. And we didn't realize it was coronavirus at the time. But then the symptoms, and I have to say we haven't been tested because there was no testing then. You couldn't get tested.
Yeah.
And then I got the symptoms at the end of March, and I lost my sense of taste and smell. And she then got that one about 2 weeks after I got it. But here's the thing with my experience of it is, and again, this is just my experience, and I'm not saying it's a universal experience. I had 2 weeks where it was really intense, and then I was exhausted. And I mean like almost like a chronic fatigue thing for, I reckon, about 4 months. And I reckon it's only in the last 4 weeks. I did this fast about 4 weeks ago. And that kick-started me back up to how I felt pre-coronavirus. So, and it's interesting today because in the news, people are talking about the long tail of it. So, you know, I understand people's fears about, you know, government and government controlling and all this. But I also have to say, counter that with what my experience and what I've seen in my family and with Susan getting it, it's by far and away the worst kind of flu I've ever had. And I knew I was always going to be worried, but there was a time I was very worried about her. So right. I think I'm really glad that it's so great that you're doing this because, you know, here's the other thing. I've got people who go like, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask. Right. And I'm like, even if you don't think, you know, this mask is effective, why won't you do it as a form of, it's like, isn't it respecting other people? There are elderly people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been going to Japan. I think I've done 80 trips to Japan now in the last, and you know, 20 years ago, I used to see people walking around with masks and I said, hey, what's going on? And they say, oh, they're trying not to infect, they have a cold and they do it out of respect for their fellow citizens, you know, so they don't pass their cold on. And it's just it's a gesture of respect, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And now when you can, you know, and then everybody has a thing, well, I'm not going to get it or this, but then you can get it and give it to somebody else, you know, that you love, you know?
Yeah.
And nobody knows how it's going to affect you. I'm glad to hear you guys you survived it okay. I mean, that's...
Oh yeah, we're fine, yeah. But it's, I definitely, my experience of it is not to underestimate it, you know, and I've got lots of dear friends who are like going, it's just a bad flu. What are they doing? But, you know, right. But I always ask, well, have you had it? And all of them go, well, no. And I go, well,
right.
I don't want to say like, I told you I've had it, but you know, there is some, but then there are some people who've had it who don't feel anything. So there are so many unknowns about this period. Yeah. But, you know, how are you? Yeah.
One of my writing partners he had it in March but he still hasn't recovered his sense of smell, you know, and taste. He's about 60% back, you know, so nobody knows. And he's a young lad, you know, so nobody really knows what the story. Another one of my friends, one of their golf buddies, a couple of weeks ago, he said, oh, I don't feel too good today. I'll sit this round out, you know, and then that Wednesday they get a call and he's died, gone.
No.
And so like you have every story A to Z. And since we don't know a lot about it, why don't we just kind of be on the safe side? The mask is not a big deal. You know?
It's really not a big deal, is it? And I just, you know, the way that it's sort of become a bit of a political statement now, it's just like, this isn't a political statement. This is, like you said, it's respect, it's courtesy, it's trying to be responsible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I've been experimenting with fasting a little bit too. There's one thing that I'm going to have to try to catch up with you, because how many days did you go on your fast?
It was either 6 or 7, just drinking water.
Really?
Yeah.
How hard is that?
Do you know what? It's really strange because the one I just did, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I was here in Wales and I felt amazing and I kind of didn't want to start eating again.
Wow. That's what
But
they say, but I've never. I'll do like every other week or so. I'll go a day. So
yeah,
I'll
well,
do that.
that's a great thing, and that's what I start doing. Every week, so I do an intermittent fast. And actually,
Right.
I forgot I will do it this week, but I really recommend it, and it's interesting because I got into it about 11, 12 years ago. I've sort of been I was, how in life sometimes things fall into your path, and I don't
Right.
believe in coincidences or I like what Jung says about synchronicities. I like that there is a kind of a plan as well that goes on. So this friend had given me this book about getting old gracefully, and I was only like 39 at the time. I don't know. She was my Pilates instructor. Sinead, she's brilliant. She gave me this book. Anyway,
I
it was,
love that book.
yeah, I love that book. And I sort of hadn't really looked at it, and then I put it down on the table, and it opened at the page. It was like whatever, chapter 7, and it said water fasting. And this book was a book that was written in about the turn of the 20th century, and it's all about just general things that you can do to keep yourself in good health. And the page falls open at water fasting, and I read it, and I'm in, I'm there, and I was just like, okay, because I also had I used to have a really unhealthy relationship with food. I mean, people used to say about how much I could eat, but I literally would wake up in the morning and I would think about like, okay, so where am I going to have lunch? And what, I had, it was, so.
Well, you're pretty tall. I mean, so there's a lot. You need a lot of fuel anyway.
Yeah, but there was a kind of it was almost like a survival thing. So this book falls open, and anyway, I knew it, and I did my first fast, and I was immediately in, and it was the most extraordinary experience I'd had. It was kind of, there was a euphoric element. Day 1 to 3 was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Day 3 I felt old, and I was clamoring for nature. So I went to Hampstead Heath. And I literally stumbled from tree to tree like an old man. I was going, and I sat there overlooking London on Parliament Hill, and I was, this is rubbish. I'm not going to do this. But the next day I woke up and I had energy like I'd never had it before. So, yeah, I think I tell you what I really like about it as well. It reconnects you with everything, and there was a reason why, the sages. There's a reason why when you read, I was reminded of it because I'm reading a lot of Native American history at the moment, and books like Black Elk Speaks, and they always talk about before the vision quest of fasting. So it connects you with your divine, with divinity, with if you want God, it really does. There's a very strong connection, and as musicians,
Yeah.
It inspires me. I always feel inspired, and that's what helps us play, right? I mean, that's what it is, right?
A couple people are asking what the name of this book is.
I'll try. I've lost it, unfortunately.
You still remember? You don't remember the name?
I'll try and find it. It's a book that's out of print, and it's almost like it's because I've been trying to find it on our bookshelves in the library, and it's almost like it's a mythical book, like it almost didn't exist. This book has walked away and is probably in someone else's house and opening at the same page.
Right. Well, there's a doctor in London, a good friend of mine, and he has a place in Brazil, and twice a year, I think he holds these fasts where they fast for 7 days or 14 days or something like that.
Yeah.
They just drink coconut water and maybe a little bit of soup at the end of the day. But he said people come down and you leave a different person.
You really do.
Yeah.
It's a really profound thing, and I it's not for everyone. I mean, it was interesting when I did it, and I sort of did it publicly with Instagram Live and talking about it. There are a lot of people who were like, "You shouldn't be doing this. It's dangerous." And it's like all these things. If you feel it's right for you and you're responsible, it's an amazing thing. And I think you would love it.
Well, I look forward to it because plus I'm trying to practice social distancing from the refrigerator these days. It's just like it's like you turn around and we've been home so much for most of the year, and then it's like, so the only thing left is going into the refrigerator.
Hey, how are you dealing with this all? I mean, because it's like how because these are challenging times for everyone. I'm interested, like, what, because you're a person for me who's very, very inspiring, because it's true. When I'm in your orbit, when I'm with you, there's such an air of gratitude, of calmness, of and hope. I love, because you've got such a great disposition. How are you staying? Because it's not always, or tell me, maybe you're not all, and like it's a roller coaster, right? So is it up and down for you?
Yeah, I think like anything else, this affects people probably proportionate to where they are in their lives. So now, for 40 years I've been almost living out of a suitcase and ripping up and down around the world. Like I said, 80 trips to Japan, London, we go, a couple times a year. So for me, actually, this is the first time in 40 years that I actually haven't had to jump on a plane and like racing the clock, so it feels amazing actually to me. It's like a gift. And then I got the gift of being with my family, and the kids, for the first few months, we were all here. And of course, if you're a 20-year-old college student, this is pretty sucky. You miss, you miss spring break, you miss hanging with your friends. So from a 20-year-old's perspective, it's not the greatest thing in the world. But as far as where I see it now, it's just I've been able to say, hey, if these are lemons, I made some great lemonade out of them, because it's been a blessing to be with the family and catch up, on a lot of time that I've actually lost over the years.
Yeah. How have you found that? Because I was talking to my manager today, Mark, who's an American in America, and the election seems to be really taking its toll on. He said, you could hear it. People are exhausted, right, already by it. Would that be
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. 2020 over here, the first thing that was kind of like crazy was Kobe Bryant dying.
Yeah.
And that was like,
of course.
In January before all this happened. And that was like, that's a weird thing that you're saying, oh, that shouldn't really happen, and a young guy like that, I mean, it's just one of those things that's just out of the blue. And then, but progressively, the virus came in. We've lost tons of great musicians, Eddie Van Halen and Rocco, one of my favorite bass players from Tower of Power.
Tower of Power, yeah.
He just passed. And then we had the virus, we had the election. It's like, fires, hurricanes.
Yeah.
and I think, again, when this whole virus first happened, I said, hey, this is like ideal time for the entire planet to reboot.
Yeah.
It's a reboot opportunity for humanity.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of the direction. World leaders, everybody shut down, so that if you're a billionaire with 5 jets, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And everybody on the spectrum, so it becomes a great equalizer. And I thought, wow, this is an opportunity for like us to really see where we can take humanity, maybe do a reboot and sort out some of the things that need to be sorted. And as the year has progressed, again, we all watched a police officer put his knee on a man's neck while he had his handcuffed behind and he's on the ground, and 5 guys are on top of the guy until he just stops breathing. I mean, that was just like a nightmare to watch, you know, and to be there, you know, you get your kids, everybody saw it, you know,
Yeah.
and it just, to me, it's this, everything that's happened this year has turned, you know, it's been like unreal, you know, and I think when I have friends that are close to 100 years old, and they said, never have we seen a year like this ever.
I think it's interesting because I'm always trying to see what the bigger picture is on it. And
Right.
if you would, you know, the world, say the world back in 2012 was a very different place, just 8 years ago. And what's been happening, I think, in the last 3 years, you know, with the Me Too movement and stuff happening is, and this year it's becoming to a crux, and, you know, with Black Lives Matter, is all these things, we're shining a light on all these places where wrongdoing has happened, where things need to be addressed, you know, and it's only through these very extreme, dreadful situations like George Floyd's death that that these things come up. But it was interesting. I had a conversation. I had a really interesting conversation with Jay-Z a few weeks back.
Wow.
Yeah, and I said to him, because I was really curious. I said, because, you know, he was kind of like the first Black American I'd spoken to, and I said, how do you feel about everything that's happening? I mean, and he was really interesting. He said, listen, he said, my generation, you know, we took a lot of shit. We would take that. He said, the young generation will not take this anymore. We are never going back to how it was. And I think that's so interesting. I thought I took so much heart because, you know, from over here in Britain, you definitely felt like you could never go back. Is that what you know, for all the crisis and all the sadness and the way that, you know, the treatment of Black Americans by the police force, etc., and the sort of institutionalized racism, there's a feeling now that you can never go back, right?
Right. Exactly. You know, I was speaking about voting. I was speaking to one of the ladies that used to help look after the kids when they were young, and she's an 80-year-old sister, you know, and then
Yeah.
we rang her. It was her birthday the other day, and we rang, and she was saying how excited she was about voting because her mother used to have to go to court and take a test before they let her vote.
No.
So she was remembering. She reminded us that, yeah, I remember every time it came time to vote, my mom she'd go to the courthouse to give her a test, and then on the test would be questions like how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, or, you know, I mean,
What?
yeah, and so I'm speaking to somebody that's lived this, you know,
Yeah.
and it's just, I mean, we got to kind of change it right now. We have an opportunity, you know.
Yeah, and it feels. I mean, although the divisions are probably bigger in society than they've ever been, right? But everybody who's on, I'm not going to use these words like the right side of history or the wrong side of history, but the enlightened way, it feels like, you know, the younger generation are not, you know, they're so on board. I've never, you know, like with the kids, I noticed that how, you know, their generation are so,
Woke.
yes, so woke. That's the
Yeah.
right word. I didn't used to know what that word meant, but they are so woke, and like, you know, the way they deal with issues of trans, you know, the society, and this is something, you know, we never grew up with. So yeah, I think I always get the feeling with you whenever I speak to you, in spite of all this, I do feel there is some light and there's hope, and that's,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, those are a lot of the things that my parents instilled in me. And my mom, you know, they raised 7 kids, you know, and so if you can imagine in the 50s and 60s, you know,
Wow.
they were coming through at a time when they were dealing with this firsthand. And so I'm thinking, you know, there's nothing in my life that's ever going to compare to what the sacrifices they had to make for us, you know.
Yeah.
And they were always very kind. My mom said, kill them with kindness, you know.
Yeah.
She turned people around just, you know, just by her presence and her spirit, that, you know, I learned a lot from her. And, you know, I think the folks were a great example of, okay, this is how you have to navigate through something that's taking place in real time, you know.
Yeah.
There's not a day in my life that goes by where I, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, chisel away at becoming better and justifying, you know, the air that I breathe, you know.
Yeah. Did you, how much, I wonder, one of the things I really wanted to ask you, and we talked a little bit about this, but not really, because when we were together, but about your faith, about, you know, your relationship, your spirituality, your relationship with God, all this stuff. Because, you know, for me, I have to say, one of the amazing things working with you is obviously not your musicianship, but your spirituality and the way that you work and the way that you talk and the way that you are. And it has really, I've come from this place, and I don't think I ever told you. So my parents, I come from Catholic, I've got some Jewish blood on my father's side, but basically it's Catholicism. And Catholicism in Britain and in Ireland, because that's where some of the family came from, was on my father's side of the family. Catholicism in Britain in the 50s and 60s, when my parents, and they were educated by nuns and by priests and stuff, it was hardcore, it was very austere, and it was brutal. So my parents' generation completely rejected Catholicism.
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, and I totally understand that, because it was I mean, listen, I remember going to Catholic church a few times with my grandmother, and first of all, the music was awful. It was like, there were no tunes there. It was awful. It was cold. There were these big grey-stoned buildings, and there was just no love. There's no warmth. And as a child, intuitively you feel, oh, I hate this. This is awful. There's nothing there. So I grew up in a time, and I wouldn't say it was godless, because that's not what I believe now, but there was it was kind of a brutal time. It was quite hard. But my journey has been one of reopening my eyes and, you know, spiritual experiences. And, you know, I understand about organized religion, and I can differentiate between organized religion and spirituality. And, you know, and I've done my homework. I've read my Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley. But one of the beautiful things for me was when I was with you and Omar and David, I really felt I could be myself. You know, like we do that prayer at the beginning before we played.
You led us in the great prayer every morning.
Yeah, the great invocation. And to me, that's like, because music is magic. It's divine. So, yeah. I mean, would you just, you know, because it's your relationship, how you feel about it, and how it informs your playing, because that's the other thing. Sorry, I'll let you speak in a sec. For me, it's like those moments in music when the magic happened. It is divine. That fourth take of Olympic was, and I've got spine tingled. That was a divine moment. When you in that last section went off and changed the key of the bass, I mean, like, you know, you just did that. You just and like we were kind of working out that ending, and we hadn't really we were sort of getting there, but we hadn't gone where it's going to be like this. It just happened, and that's where
I'll never forget.
We'll never forget it. But those, you know about this. So I'll let you talk now a bit about your faith.
Well, you know, I mean, there's so much to say. We can't do it IG.
2 minutes. You've got 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Talk about God.
2 minutes. But, you know, music is one of those things. The spirituality of music is one of those things where you can't see it, you can't touch it.
Yeah.
So you feel, you know. So for me, that's called spirit. And you know, it's funny because the first bass I ever picked up was in the Catholic Church. We back in, you know, the 70s, they used to, when the folk masses started, my brothers and I were kind of part of that movement, you know, because again, we you know, all due respect to Gregorian chant and
yeah,
and the hymns, but it wasn't quite the "Hey Lordy Mama" like you get in some of the Baptist churches.
Were you trying to get, because you were, sorry to interrupt, so you were Catholic, right?
Yes. And I was an altar boy.
Yeah, were you trying to get some of the gospel into, because you're looking at the gospel churches, right? The Baptists and all that, and you're going, there's some there's some beautiful stuff going on, and we need that in ours, right? Was that the
Well,
kind of?
yeah, and when we were growing up, because my father actually was Baptist, but he used to take us to a Methodist church, and then we were raised Catholic. So when my brother Ray, who's actually a Catholic priest, Monsignor East, has a
Oh yeah,
parish,
of course.
has a parish in DC. If anybody's ever in DC area, Washington DC, it's St. Teresa of Avila Church, and he
Oh,
really he has some amazing music and delivers an incredible message every Sunday. So whenever I'm there, I like to go visit.
I'll go. I'll go.
Ray East. Yeah,
I love Teresa of Avila. She was a really important saint, wasn't she? I
yeah,
loved,
absolutely.
like with St. John of the Cross and all, and yeah.
Yeah, and I was confirmed with Saint Martin de Porres as my confirmation name because he was the first Black saint, you know. So,
Wow,
yeah, so,
cool.
and so you know, and so my brother, when he did my father's eulogy, he said we were kind of a Catho Bapto Metho family. I mean, and to me, being all inclusive is another thing that I think is part of humanity. You know,
Yeah,
where everybody just doesn't get their clubs and stay in their own club. That would be like if you only play a certain type of music and then, oh, well, he plays that other kind of music, so we can't be together. No, we're all together, you know,
yeah,
in this. So that's where I think, you know, attaching yourself, having to make a choice of oh, well, I'm this, you know, and we don't do that. We don't celebrate birthdays, or we don't, you know, and I've seen everything from A to Z. So I try to incorporate spirituality as much as I can, instead of actually the religious beliefs of any one organization, you know. And I, when I'm traveling, I go to all churches. I go to, you know, mosques, you know,
yeah, yeah,
synagogues, you know, and just I try to visit and just see, you know, what kind of spirit is keeping us together. And it's an amazing thing to do, you know, in different countries. And but yeah, with music, it's definitely music. I like to let it play me, you know.
yeah.
So when we recorded Tears in Heaven back in the day, and it was such an emotional time. I always say, like, I didn't play the song played me, you know, and
Yeah,
I was just holding the bass, you know. And
yeah,
those notes came out and I had no idea, you know. You can't think of that stuff from your head, you know, so your heart kind of dictates what happens. And so that's why, to me, music is one of the most spiritual responsibilities that we have, you know. And those sessions, I tell you what, the fact that we started every day with that great prayer, and
yeah.
we all kind of got together and got our heads together and then went into the room to make that music, it was fantastic.
It was great, and I remember one day. We were having it. You know, it was kind of, you know, one of those days when we were grinding it out, and it was not really happening. And you said, "Hey, we haven't said our prayer together."
Right.
And
Yeah.
we're like, "Oh, of course."
Right.
But I loved it. I mean, for me, it's like, you know, it's funny because you know, sorry to name drop, but a few years ago, I was in Brazil when we were living in Brazil, and we a mutual friend invited us, and was also friends with Kanye West, and invited Kanye to Carnival, and we were there having some food, and Kanye wasn't really interested in me at all, and he was somewhere else altogether. And it was quite hard work, if I'm honest. We were at this meal, and I'm like, I'm trying to I'm always trying to make a connection with people. So I was sort of asking him about, you know, what do you do you demo using the MPC or whatever? Not interested. However, I got him, I said, okay, I said, if you ask any white British musician whether they believe in God, I can guarantee that 90% of them will say, I'm atheist, I don't. And he literally went, what? And he went, but I'm God's messenger. We're all, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. But what I liked about that was he was that understanding. For me, it's like music. It's like, I can't do music like if it's from the head. I'm not as good a player as you as well. And I know that,
Oh,
you
come
know,
on.
no, but listen, you know, I don't have the musical chops. The only way I can play, and I've realized this, is if I'm inspired. And that comes from, for me, that's a divine thing. And it's like a feeling that I get, and I'm sure it's the same for you. And it took me a long time to realize that. And you know, all the interviews, and yourself and Aretha and Miles and everyone, they all go like, we're just conduits. That's all.
Yeah.
Like you said, you let the music play you. And I love that thing when it's such a humbling thing, isn't it? Because it also means, here's the other thing, it means you have to keep in check. You have to stay humble and keep, because if you go out on some ego trip, it's going to stop channeling. And we've seen so many musicians who lose that thing. They're just playing the notes and they don't play from the heart. And it's because it's the ego that gets in the way. And I really believe that. And again, that was such an amazing thing for me, to play with you, who's one of the most recorded bass players in history, an extraordinary musician, but the humility, and that's why you're one of the greats. Can I
bless you for saying that. The older you get, the more you're going to get behind you.
Yeah, I want to just for readers, I've never wikied you before. Do you mind if I just read something out from your Wikipedia page?
Well,
okay.
I haven't been up there, so I hope so.
Okay, so I want, because this is for everybody who, people will know what you've done. I think a lot of people here will know you because of probably more recently Daft Punk, and you know, but I'm going to just so it says, I'm going to read it from the Wikipedia page. It says, East is a founding member of the contemporary jazz band Foreplay. He has also worked with Bobby Womack, Babyface, Anita Baker, the Bee Gees, Eric Clapton, Stevie Winwood, Peter Gabriel, Gail Ann Dorsey, Brian Ferry, Herbie Hancock, George Harrison, Michael Jackson, Al Jarreau, Elton John, Quincy Jones, Earth, Wind and Fire, who are they? B.B. King, Kenny Loggins, the Love Unlimited Orchestra, Laura Pausini, Savage Garden, Sting, Barry White, and some bloke called Stevie Wonder. I mean, and listen, there's one massive omission there.
Ed O'Brien.
We have to, anyway.
Come on, let's add that.
I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but like, what an amazing roster, right?
You know what? And when I hear that, because I haven't been up there lately, but it's funny, you know, when I think about when I was a kid, you know, and picking up the broomstick, playing along with the Beatles when they were on Ed Sullivan, and then now, you know, Ringo calls and I just was over there doing his record, and George Harrison was a dear friend. I mean, I used to go over to Henley-on-Thames and hang out and stay with them, and just as a human being, he was just very, very special. And you know, he'd come to the house in LA and meditate when he was in town. And so when I hear those names like Stevie Wonder, you know, it still to me is like pinch yourself moment, you know, to get calls from all these guys, Quincy Jones, and not only have they become, you know, musical collaborators, but just dear friends as well.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing? I mean, for me, it was a pinch yourself moment working with you and Omar, because you know, it's like, I've never worked with, I've been very lucky, been very blessed. I've worked with the same people, but I've never worked with, you know, I mean, for me, people like Stevie Wonder, George Harrison, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, you got me into Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, Earth, Wind and Fire are probably the greatest band ever, right?
Ever, yeah.
Ever.
No, I mean,
definitively. No need to ask.
I become a kid when you say Earth, Wind and Fire, you know.
Was Vernon White an influence on your playing?
Of the big influence. I mean, he's the reason I bought it. He had a white bass, and I said, okay, I'm going to get a white bass, you know.
Yeah.
One time I watched them, he ripped his shirt off.
And he's like, he really dances when he plays, doesn't he? I mean,
it's unbelievable.
And he's got all the teeth, and he's like smiling, and he's just like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's very tribal. I mean, and Earth, Wind and Fire, again, Maurice White was a very spiritual guy, and he was into numerology and
Yeah.
astrology, and he was very open. I think that's why his music touched the world like it did, you know.
Totally. And I think that thing, like, and you see in all the album artwork and all the stuff, that he was channeling something very, very strong in his music
Yeah.
and putting it out in this form. That's why, you know, and you still listen to it, and it's still, I mean, it's unbelievable how, like, I was going to do some intro music for you, and I was going to put on, you know, it could have been Shining Star, it could have been September, you know, and I was listening to it last night, and I'm like I was brushing my teeth. I thought, I've got to hear some, I'm ready to go to bed, but I thought, I've got to listen to some Earth, Wind and Fire whilst I'm brushing my, man, I
You know,
mean,
by the way, a couple of the comments, people are, the jury's out because they say Radiohead is the best, greatest.
no. No, but, you know, I mean, I think we've done our thing, but to be able to play that musicianship, but with that heart and soul and that groove, I mean, like, you know, and, you know, also you co-wrote Easy Lover with Philip Bailey and Phil Collins, right?
Right. We did that we did it at Townhouse Studios in Shepherd's Bush, right there in London. We wrote.
Wow. Was that where Phil did the in the Air Tonight famous room for his drum sound?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
George Massenberg was in there getting the great sound and everything. I mean, that's just a thrill of a lifetime to be there in that room with Phil Collins bashing away and Philip A. We had a great time. That was, man, 35 years ago.
Well, I remember when that was number one, April 1985, right? It was
Wow,
April. Yeah, April 1985. I had just fallen in love the first time. I was 17 years old. I was absolutely. I'd fancied this girl for like a year, and I didn't know whether she liked me, and she did like me, and we got together at this party, and it was just at the beginning of April. So songs around that time are indelibly marked with, you know, that, you know how music and emotions are sort of all, yeah. And so when I hear his drum roll on that, and you on that song, and you go into, you know, the falsetto of Philip Bailey and
Wow.
your bass playing, I'm like, I'm 17 again.
Well, when I landed London, and the first day we got to the studio, Against All Odds had reached number one that
No
day.
way.
So we were, you know, I was going, wow, here I am in the studio with like half of Earth, Wind and Fire and a guy that has a number one hit record right now on the charts. It's good fun.
It's like, it's that expression you can turn around and go, where did it all go wrong?
Exactly. No, and those are the kind of things. And again, you stay in the moment, so you let the music make you.
Yeah.
You know? And you know, that was like a life-changing project. You know.
Yeah.
Played those songs, and you know, getting back to Earth, Wind and Fire, those guys were able to. They were able to like fuse the genres of pop, jazz, New Orleans blues, soul, funk, and they put it all together. Quincy calls it like gumbo. You know?
Yeah,
and
totally.
This
yeah.
mixture was able to just reach so many people, and their music was very, you know, very powerful. Always had a big uplifting message, and yeah, same here. Got me through college, and I can remember, you know, being in love, and I remember some of those songs. And I later married the love of my life, Anita.
Yeah. Did you see them live during the 70s on some of those tours when the productions got really outrageous and fantastic?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was like they were spinning, like drums were spinning upside down. The piano spun, you know.
Wow!
Flipped, it was unbelievable. They worked with some magicians, and you know, and then so they would go into the pyramid and disappear, and it was fantastic. They'd appear in the back of the arena.
I heard that a young David Copperfield was involved with that.
I think David Copperfield may have been involved. A few of the famous magicians at the time they worked with, and that's again how Maurice White was able to, you know, not only take music but magic and incorporate all these elements, you know, to become Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, and the name of it's so interesting. Like as we're talking, it's like all those things. resonate with me so strongly now. It's funny, it didn't necessarily resonate with me like 20 years ago on my journey, but all those things like numerology,
Right.
like magic, all that thing,
Yeah.
ancient Egypt, all these things. I mean, it's old knowledge. There's lots of,
Yeah.
yeah, they're just,
You know, I joined the Magic Circle, one of the, because I spent a lot of times in London. So I was one of the Simon Drake, is who you may have heard of, you know, great magician, sponsored me, and I joined the Magic Circle over there and the Magic Castle over here because again, I'm interested in magic, but just because, you know, I think music is so magical.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I want to just last thing, because I always, again, and what I always think of you in new sets, one of the things, I just want to talk about your attitude towards gratitude, because you seem to be incredibly, you know, every day in the studio you're very grateful. And I notice how you're grateful for the small things. You notice the small things, that a lot of that can pass a lot of us by, but you acknowledge it and you remember it and you're thankful for it.
Yeah.
It's
But
important, isn't it?
yeah, it's very important. I think when I had come over there, I had just finished visiting my sister, who she had, I don't know if it was a stroke, and we were born on the same day, a year apart, so a year younger. But for 5 days, she became incoherent, and I had just visited her in the hospital. They had so many tubes hooked up to her, and it was, I said, oh no, I don't want to lose my sister, you know, and so I was really, really cognizant of the fact that every single moment and
Yeah,
breath that we take on our own is a gift, you know. There's nothing to complain about it when you think in terms of being able to just, you know, wake up, do planks,
yeah,
go out, go outside, you know, eat what you want to. And so I had just come from that, and thankfully she had a miraculous recovery. You know, my father East came from DC. All the family came and prayed, and literally prayed her completely out of the situation. She's in great shape now. But it was just one of those things where,
yeah,
and to this day, you know, I just feel like as soon as I wake up in the morning, I don't feel a pine box around me, I know
yeah.
it's going to be a great
I,
day.
I think that's so beautiful, and it's something I've become really aware of. I didn't used to, but I sort of started about 10 years ago, and it's part of the spiritual journey. Every night when I go to sleep, you know, before, unless I'm really tired and I'm straight out, I just kind of scan the day, and I'm thankful for those moments. And also, there are things like, you know, it is, you know, for all the challenges that we have in life, there are so many things that we take for granted that are amazing. The fact that you can turn on a tap and have a hot shower,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, although having said that, I've been taking cold showers, but that's a whole other thing. Have you heard of this guy called Wim Hof?
Yes.
Okay, I'm reading this Wim Hof book at the moment, his latest book. And there are these breathing techniques, and there's also this cold shower stuff, which I'll talk about another. But I really recommend it. It's like you really appreciate warm water.
Right. Well, I was going to say, you know, we were talking about Fiji, you know, because
Yeah,
you know, we frequent there and have a little spot there,
yeah,
and it's literally, you know, you're living off the land, and you know, the water is just whatever temperature comes out. You know,
yeah,
when you take
yeah,
a shower, and you know, we have propane tanks for when we want to heat meals and everything
yeah.
down there. So especially when I started going there about 15 years ago, just very, very primitive. However, the most beautiful people you ever want to meet, you know. And
Yeah.
so without much materialistically, again, spiritually, they have so much to give, and it really lets you see, like, we can go and turn on a faucet and get hot water. That in and of itself is a big, huge blessing.
Yeah, we had a very similar experience. You know, when we went to live in Brazil, we were living in a small, kind of like, it wasn't a hut, it was a kind of an adobe building, very small.
Yeah.
And we were living next to a waterfall, very simply, no Wi-Fi, no TV, no
Right.
radio, just the
Right.
computer to watch a few DVDs and listen, the iTunes library for you know, listening to tunes. And it was just that life reduced to its core constituents. And it was, for me, it's family, music, and
Right.
food. Food.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's no shortage of good food in Brazil.
No, there isn't. But yeah, it's the simple things, and it's being thankful. And I think it's really, I think like what you said now, being more so than ever, being thankful. Like you wake up, because we all know what it's like when you've been really ill, and you haven't got the energy. You can't do these things. And I think for me, certainly my experience of gratitude and being thankful has kind of, it propels you along in life. Do you know what I mean? In a sort of more positive aspect.
Yeah, well, if you think about, just think about three things that you're really, really grateful for. And while you're doing that, there's no way to be mad
Yeah.
or angry, because you're grateful, and I like the feeling of gratitude a lot better than anger
Yeah.
and whinging about everything. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things, every single morning I wake up and I start with a meditation, because
Yep.
clears the mind. Like Quincy says, when you're quiet, you can hear God's whispers,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, and then Noah, the other day, he showed me a video where Kobe Bryant was saying, I start every morning with a 15-20 minute meditation,
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, it makes sense, because our mind guides us through everything that we're going to do in our lives,
It's key for me that, yeah, for me, that 15-20 minute meditation first thing, it sets it's your foundation for the day. And I was sometimes the meditation, I don't know if you find it hard, and meditation turns into a prayer. But that thing of I always think meditation, the difference between prayer and meditation is the prayer, you let the divine in, and the prayer, you let it out. And, it's like meditation lets God in, and a prayer, you're praying out to God. And it's kind of,
right.
I agree. For me, it's like whenever somebody's going through, there are a lot of friends going through a really rough time at the moment, or people I know. And I say, listen, just teach yourself, learn how to do a form of meditation. It's pretty free, but it'll set you up, and it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And my son's studying it right now too. And another thing I love is yoga and
yeah, I do yoga as well.
Yeah, that's right. You were doing some over when we were doing the record, and it's just another thing that you're kind of taking care of this temple. We only get one.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
I always love the Warren Buffett story. He said, okay, imagine this. You can pick any car you want, and they're going to give it to you. But the only thing is, that's the only car you're going to get for the rest of your life. Are you going to take care of it? Of course you're going to take care of it. So the body is the same thing. We get one.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm glad now I kind of realize the importance of taking care of it.
Yeah, well, when you're younger, you kind of you got that new car, and you're going to drive it as fast as you can.
Right, and you do.
You do.
Yeah,
exactly.
But no, it's and these are the things that I think we're in a much better position now that everybody's been home, had a chance to reflect, go inside, and really kind of reboot. Basically, this year has been a reboot. Somebody put 2020 vision there, and I think that's what we've been given. And again, it affects everybody differently. And some people don't make it through, and that's why we started the plank, the planks, the souls.
Well, you know what? It's so lovely to reconnect with you, because your message, and I love the way that you're framing this year of the reboot, the great reboot.
Yeah, I think if we keep that mentality in it, I know how frustrating it is. People just want to hit a switch. Can we just go back to the way it was?
No.
Can we go back? But I don't think we're ever going to go back to that kind of normal. And so what we could do is say, from here, we have the opportunity to kind of write the script. And I think that's what people are doing.
I totally agree with you. And we've got to rewrite the script with love and respect for all beings, all humans, and our beautiful planet. And that's right. What we're going to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so we, this is our chance. And then, 40 years from now, we can look back and say, hey, we did the right thing in 2020.
Yeah. Let's do this again in 40 years' time.
Yeah, they'll roll us. Matter of fact, we'll be able to. We'll do it from our watches.
Yeah.
Or
We'll be holograms.
yeah, exactly. No, but I really am grateful for the fact that we had a chance to connect, not only musically, but you feel like a brother to me. The
Oh.
brotherhood is just something I really, really appreciate.
Oh, well, me too. And I love you, Nathan. And I just, for me, it's as a musician to play with you. But as I said, to be in your orbit, it's just been an honor. And one of those things that on my deathbed at the end of my years, I just bring a massive smile to my face.
Bro, same. And by the way, say hey to Colin and all my buddies in the band.
Yeah, will do. Will do.
I'm a big fan, and
Yeah.
that concert was a game changer.
Oh, you're so kind. Well, listen,
Yeah.
big love. We'll speak soon, connect soon, and let's do this again in a year's time or something. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah, let's see where we are.
yeah, and everybody out there in Instagram land,
Yeah.
stay safe. God bless you.
Big love,
Peace.
everybody out there. Yeah, love that.
See
Love you,
guys.
man. Love you
man.
guys.
Take care. All the
Bye.
best. Bye for now.